Before we get to example 1, I want you to take a quick glance at the box above it. We have our vertical motion models. So in this day, we are going to be starting word problems. We have two different formulas. You do not need to memorize them. They will be given to you on the test. But the first one is that an object is dropped or falls, which means we have no initial velocity. And that formula is h equals negative 16 t squared plus s. The other equation we have is if an object is thrown or somebody jumps, and that has an initial velocity. So it's very similar. The only difference between these two is this one has the velocity factor in there, which is plus v times t. Both of these equations, here's what everything stands for. H is equal to the height, and this is going to be your final height, so the height at the very end. T is your time in motion in seconds. S is your initial height in feet, so where are you starting at? And again, this is the final height. And then v is your initial velocity in terms of feet per second. Initial velocity is positive if you are going up, and it's going to be negative if you are going down. Now let's take a look at example 1. Example 1 says construction waste falls down a 25-foot chute into a bin. How long will it take the waste to reach the bin? Assume there is no air resistance. So right now we are falling. So we are going to use the equation from above that h equals negative 16 t squared plus s. And with that in mind, let's start figuring out what we have. So it says construction waste falls down a 25-foot chute. So the starting point, or the initial height, which is s, is going to be 25. So we can say that s is equal to 25. And it's falling into a bin which is located on the ground, which means our final height, which is h, is going to be 0 feet. So if it's on the ground, that means it's 0 feet above the ground. How long will it take the waste to reach the bin? So how long, which is our time, is what we don't know. That's what we're trying to find. So we're going to plug these numbers in. We're going to plug 0 in for h. We're going to plug 25 in for s and solve for t. So we get 0 equal to negative 16 t squared plus 25. Now to solve for t, the very first thing we have to do is get rid of the 25, and we can do that by subtracting 25 from both sides. And if we subtract 25 from both sides, we get negative 25 equal to negative 16 t squared. And then we divide both sides by negative 16. And we get 25 over 16. It's positive if we have a negative divided by a negative, equal to t squared. And then what we want to do is take the square root of both sides. So we'll take plus or minus the square root of 25 over 16 and the square root of t squared. Now remember, the square root undoes the square, so that t on that right-hand side is going to come out by itself. And the square root of 25 over 16 would give us plus or minus 1.25. And when we're thinking about time, time is never going to be a negative number. So the only answer we want here is the positive answer. So we can answer that it would take 1.25 seconds for that to fall. If you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can move on to example 2.